Hi there, so what have I got today? Two little puppies, electronic puppies. Got them from a charity shop, £1 for both. Couldn't resist, even if they didn't work. They must be worth hacking, pulling apart, seeing what's inside and seeing what I could do with them. Brilliant little things, love them. Which one first? So let's do the red one first, yeah? Let's have a look at this little fella. He's interesting in he's got a switch on his head. Looks like his nose ought to press, but doesn't. Little hole down here at the bottom, presumably for a microphone. On his bottom he's got little wheels, and if we move them they go one way but not the other. Same on the legs at the back, so that sort of implies there's a motor on the inside that'll make him walk along, or it walk along. But when I come to try it, find that the motor is actually jammed. I tried bringing the wires out, connect them onto a power supply and then make it go one way or make it go the other, and it just doesn't want to work. About 90 milliamps trying to drive the motor, so unfortunately it's no go. Took it apart, of course, so if we take him apart, what we got? Well, his visor comes off first. His legs should be screwed on, but I've taken these little red plastic bits off, and then I can take the legs off. And if I pull him apart gently, then there we are. See that his head isn't going to turn because it's all in one part. The legs at the front move but aren't controlled by anything, and I've taken the electronics out but left the motor in. The motor then is quite in gearbox, is very interesting. If we take those out, they're going to come on. Oops, the tail doesn't do anything, it just seems to be placed in position. Will move a little bit but not a lot. So how do I get this out? Should just pull out, just slid in, and there we come, and there it comes out. Oops, that's the button off the top, and there's a hint as to maybe why it didn't work. Looks like the batteries have leaked, or it's got water in somehow. If we look at this then, what we've got is one of these tiny little motors with a switch here, so that it can tell on this cam where the switch is, or where the cam is, so it can press against that. If we try again with this controlling it, then now of course it wants to work, goes one way and then the other way. So we could put a leg back on, I don't know which is which if it matters. Pop a leg on, and then when it rotates it goes backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. So it has this sort of intermittent fault. The voltage, the current it's taking at the moment is minimal once it's actually running. It's only when it's stalled, about 20 milliamps there, but that's what should happen with it. If we look inside the gearbox then, what we have is this oscillating piece and this nice little mechanism here, this linkage, and this linkage then has a little bit in the middle which I assume is there to absorb any sort of movement if somebody tries to move it, although I can't manage to move it. The gearbox itself is held together by these two pieces on either side, so it wouldn't come apart until I cut along the bottom of this one and pulled it off. Don't know if I can get it off again. Let's see if we can find some pliers. A long nose will do, won't they? So I had to take that off. Now how they've built it, I'm not too sure. There he is, he's off. And if we look at the shaft is knurled at the end. So whether they put them on and press fit them on, I'm not too sure. But once I've got that apart, then I can take out the other half, and this is the oscillating bit going backwards and forwards. I've taken the wires off so that I can control it separately, and then just gently take the gearbox apart, and we find this lovely little motor, lovely little gear on it, little pinion, and then all these gears on the inside. I haven't tried to work out the ratio, but it must slow it down quite a lot. Yeah, so that was very interesting. Super gears, but unfortunately the gearbox tends to jam. It was jammed when I got it at first, and therefore took about the 90 milliamps and wouldn't work. Because it's got a motor in it then, it needs quite big batteries, and therefore it uses a couple of AAA batteries. And there we can see the reason. Looks like one has leaked, and that has just left all the crud going up into the thing itself. Nice little battery holder, very compact, very neat. What else we got? We got the electronics here. So if we look at the electronics, what we got a speaker, we've got the circuit board with a blob on it and what looks like a chip. If we look at the chip, I don't know if we'll manage to see it, but oops, maybe a bit too far, but never mind. There we can see that this is a TC117HS. If we look at the data sheet for that, we can find a Chinese one, but not particularly any other. Let's go back down. We find it looks like it should just be an H-bridge driver. In other words, when one input's high and one input's low, then it goes in one direction. When it's the other way around, this one low and this one high, then it goes in the opposite direction. And if they're both high, then the output is just 0. The chip itself, it's pin out, interesting. It has an out A, an out B, 2 grounds. They just go out to the motor with a couple of capacitors down to ground and a capacitor across the motor, usual sort of thing. And in here we have a not connected wire from the microcontroller. Then we have an A and a B input, and we have the positive here coming from the microcontroller into this gizmo. So that's the chip, the motor driver chip. Interesting enough, typical sort of thing that we'd find. What else have we got on here? Well, let's go in a bit closer again, see if we can see anything else. A diode here. Anything else? Look like transistors. Presumably they're to drive the speaker or something. The loudspeaker comes off over here. And lots of surface mounted components. I've soldered this connector on here so that the motor will plug in, and put a couple of pins on here so that the motors will go on there. If we try then, let's see if we can put some current into it, or some voltage, should we say. If I can connect it up correctly. Then I've got 3 volts. Let's try connecting. That's it connected. Let's go down so we can see. So here we've got our circuit board. Let's take these gubbins out of the way for now. I think we're finished with that. If we look at our circuit board then, we have a switch, an interesting idea of a switch because it has 3 wires on it. Presumably it shorts out a capacitor or something when it's switched off. So there, the 3 wires on it and the switch coming down onto the circuit board. Looks like the diode there might be across the input. If we try switching it on, take that bit of metal away from the speaker. Let's try switching it on. Here's the switch, which way is on? That way. And nothing happens. Why isn't anything happening? Oh. So that's like tapping the top of its head, makes the LEDs flash. And if we tap the microphone, makes its funny sorts of noises. Let's try putting the motor on, see what happens. This motor driver chip can go in both directions, so presumably the motor can as well. So there, the motor's turning the opposite way. Bit difficult to see because it's going so fast. Don't know if the switch should have any effect on it, but it does stop on its own anyway. So it looks like it doesn't really need the switch. It's got timing on it as well. Maybe there the switch should help, who knows. But I don't know if it's responding to my voice, which is why it's moving, or if it would just do it on its own. Yeah, all in all, a very interesting little gizmo. Well worth 50p just for entertainment to pull apart. Glad it wasn't for a child though, because if they'd have bought it and it didn't do anything, they wouldn't be very happy. Didn't do anything because the motor was shorting it out, and therefore none of the other electronics worked at all. So I think that's it. I think that's all there is to it. Very similar to these gizmos. Maybe it can do something else. I'm not too sure. The thing itself is a recognised brand. Can I switch that off? There, it's off. And if we look at the base of it somewhere, I think it tells us where off. There's where the on-off switch goes. Off. Oh, can't find it. Thought it said, oh yeah, underneath the don't dispose. What's that? Teksta, which seems to be a very popular brand of small toy dogs. Can't find any more like this anywhere, so I assume it's quite old. Don't think there's anything on the circuit board to tell me about it. But yeah, very interesting. Nice to pull apart. Enjoyed that. Glad that I bought it. So it's bye now. Bye.